Trade and climate, the pivot for India-US ties. The two areas are interrelated and will lend additional strength to the foundation of a true partnership. When the history of the 21st century is written, India and the United States and the strategic alliance they forge should play starring roles. Granted, it is far too early to predict how successful their joint efforts will be in creating a free and open Indo-Pacific, one that advances democratic values and confronts autocracies globally and locally. As 2021 closes, with COVID-19 still a present danger and China, the emerging superpower on the global stage, viewed by both as a strategic competitor, India and the US have a long way to go before they can inspire confidence that this blossoming alliance will endure for the long term. Areas of convergence. We believe that the fate of the grand strategic ambitions of the relationship may in fact depend substantially on how well they collaborate in two areas to which the joint attention is only belatedly turning: climate and trade. The first presents an existential threat while the second is too often dismissed as a secondary consideration, even dispensable in the name of pursuing larger strategic interests. Such thinking ignores the lessons of history. Strategic partnerships capable of reshaping the international global order cannot be based simply on a negative agenda. Shared concerns about China provide the US-India partnership a much-needed impetus to overcome the awkward efforts for deeper collaboration that have characterized the past few decades. What risks being lost is a reckoning with how interrelated climate and trade are to securing US-India leadership globally, and how their strategic efforts can flounder without sincere commitment to a robust bilateral agenda on both fronts. Some encouraging signs. There has been progress. The U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, has visited India twice already, and India and the U.S. are collaborating under the Climate and Clean Energy Agenda Partnership. In parallel, there are hopeful signs that they are now prioritizing the bilateral trade relationship by rechartering the Trade Policy Forum. Both countries are also taking leading roles, articulating their climate concerns and commitments. However, early signs suggest we might be headed for a replay of previous showdowns at COP26 in Glasgow, while India just announced a net zero goal for 2070. A welcome development even if well after catastrophic climate scenarios may be baked in, it has called for Western countries to commit to negative emissions targets. India's rhetoric of climate justice is likely to be received poorly by US negotiators, particularly if it aligns with China's messaging and obstructs efforts to reach concrete results. Likewise, the failure of the US and India to articulate a shared vision for a comprehensive trade relationship raises doubts about how serious they are when each spends more time and effort negotiating with other trading partners. Protectionist tendencies infect the politics of both countries these days, and, with a contentious US midterm election a year away, the political window for achieving problem-solving outcomes and setting a vision on trade for the future is closing fast. The interlinks. Climate and trade are interrelated in many ways, from commercial dissemination of cutting-edge carbon mitigation and adaptation products and technologies to the carbon emissions that come with the transport of goods and humans from one country to another. If governments, such as India and the US, coordinate policies to incentivize sharing of climate-related technologies and align approaches for reducing emissions associated with trade, the climate-trade interrelationship can be a net positive one. Work on early solutions. For example, India and the US could find opportunities to align their climate and trade approaches better, starting with a resolution of the disputes in the World Trade Organization (WTO) on solar panels. As they have dithered in pursuing cases in the WTO and settling them, China has effectively captured the global market, leaving each dependent on a source they view as a threat. The two countries could also chart a path that allows trade to flow for transitional energy sources, such as fuel ethanol. India currently bans imports of fuel ethanol even as it seeks to ramp up its own ethanol blend mandates and build a domestic sector that can join the US and Brazil in exporting to the world. Left unaddressed, this will be another missed opportunity for the two economies to work to mutual benefit. Shared strategic interests will be undermined if India and the US cannot jointly map coordinated policies on climate and trade. The most immediate threat could be the possibility of new climate and trade tensions were India to insist that technology is transferred in ways that undermine incentives for innovation in both countries, or if the US decides that imports from India be subject to increased tariffs in the form of carbon border adjustment mechanisms or CBAMs. Climate-inspired trade tensions that might even lead to new trade wars can hardly bolster the strategic partnership. A point to ponder over. Diplomats on both sides have worked hard over the past few years to paper over such differences so that they do not distract from the efforts to lay the foundations for a closer strategic partnership, but the fissures have not disappeared and ignoring them will not make them go away. Rather, the danger is that they will widen and deepen and come to undermine shared longer-term goals. A mutual failure to confront these issues and present a united front in relations with other countries will surely have strategic consequences. So, even as they continue to embrace warmly in various strategic settings, US President Joe Biden and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi might want to ask how this partnership is clearly falling short of its potential, and why. Concerted action on both the climate and trade fronts is mutually beneficial and will lend additional strength to the foundation of a true partnership for the coming century.
As India has created history by vaccinating 100 crore people against COVID-19, All India Radio salutes all the doctors, nurses, other frontline workers, and all those who got vaccinated and made this possible. Even though the country has achieved this feat, we caution our listeners that the battle against COVID is not yet over. We appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. During the festival season, please follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a review meeting with the officials of districts having low vaccination coverage at 12 noon today through video conferencing. The meeting will include districts with less than 50% coverage of the first dose and low coverage of the second dose of COVID vaccine. Mr. Modi will interact with district magistrates of over 40 districts in Jharkhand, Manipur, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Maharashtra, Meghalaya, and other states with districts having low vaccination coverage. Chief ministers of these states will also be present on the occasion. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that Indian Space Research Organization ISRO will soon provide the world a solar power calculator application that can measure solar energy potential of any region across the globe. Speaking at the session on accelerating clean technology innovation and deployment of the global COP26 summit in Glasgow, Mr. Modi said, "Through this calculator, solar power potential of any place in the world can be calculated based on satellite data." Mr. Modi said this application will be useful in deciding the location of solar projects and will strengthen One Sun, One World and One Grid initiative. He said solar energy is totally clean and sustainable, and the challenge is that this energy is only available during daytime and dependent on the weather. He said, "One Sun, One World and One Grid is a solution to this problem, and through a worldwide grid, clean energy can be transmitted anywhere, anytime." The Prime Minister said this creative initiative will not only reduce the carbon footprint and cost of energy, but will also open a new avenue of cooperation between different regions and countries. Mr. Modi pointed out that use of fossil fuels made some countries prosperous, but it made the earth and environment poor, and the race for fossil fuels also created geopolitical tensions, and today technology has given us a great alternative. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral meetings with President of Ukraine and Prime Ministers of Nepal and Israel on the sidelines of the COP26 summit in Glasgow. Mr. Modi also met his Finnish counterpart, Sanna Marin. Briefing media in Glasgow, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla said during their meeting, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky appreciated India's support during the COVID crisis. The President recalled how he himself had taken Covishield vaccine manufactured by the Serum Institute of India. The Ukraine President also expressed appreciation for India's support not only for vaccines but also for affordable and quality pharmaceuticals. He suggested that India and Ukraine should collaborate in joint manufacture and production of a wide range of medicines and other health equipment. He reminded Mr. Modi that he had invited him to visit Ukraine, and Mr. Modi agreed to visit at the opportune time. During the meeting with his Israeli counterpart, Naftali Bennett, Prime Minister Modi mentioned that next year would mark the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between India and Israel. He invited him to visit India in that context. The Israeli Prime Minister said he will be delighted to visit India the first quarter of next year. The Foreign Secretary said Nepalese Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deoba thanked Mr. Modi for providing vaccines to Nepal in a timely manner, including 1 million doses that have just been supplied. Mr. Deoba also thanked Mr. Modi for the assistance that India had provided to Nepal post-earthquake. This includes the construction of 50,000 houses in Gorkha district and a number of schools and hospitals. He also invited Prime Minister Modi to visit Nepal at the earliest as per his convenience. Home Minister Amit Shah launched the Ayushman CAPF scheme health cards at the national level in New Delhi yesterday. The Home Minister launched the scheme by handing over the Ayushman card to a personnel. He also handed over Ayushman CAPF scheme health cards to the Director General, National Security Guard, for distribution to NSG personnel. Speaking on this occasion, Mr. Shah said the CAPFs should take care of the security of the country without any worries, and Narendra Modi government will take care of their families. He said the scheme has been designed to cover all serving personnel and the dependents of the 7 Central Armed Police Forces. The process of distribution of health cards across Central Armed Police Forces, CAPFs, began on the auspicious occasion of Dhanvantri Puja. The health card distribution will be undertaken in all CAPFs, and the number of cards distributed will be displayed on the website of the Home Ministry on a daily basis. The distribution of about 35 lakh cards will be completed by December this year. The famous Deepotsav function on the occasion of Diwali will be celebrated in Ayodhya this evening. Deepotsav is being held for the 5th consecutive year, and the scale has increased with each celebration. All temples, even those in narrow lanes and by-lanes of Ayodhya, will be decorated and illuminated on Deepotsav. The entire city has been spruced up. The main event will be presided over by Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, and Union Minister of Culture and Tourism G. Kishan Reddy will be reaching today to grace the occasion. In Jammu and Kashmir, an open-air theatre was inaugurated recently in the Dal Lake in Srinagar as a part of Iconic Week celebrations. The opening of the Floating Air Theatre, a first of its kind, would attract more and more tourists to visit Kashmir Valley, which is cradled high in the lofty green Himalayas and hailed all over the world for its incredible natural scenic beauty. Here is a report from our correspondent.
For the past 3 decades, the movie theatres in Kashmir Valley have remained closed due to unprecedented circumstances. However, the Jammu and Kashmir administration has come up with a novel idea of opening an air theatre in the middle of the world-famous Dal Lake in Srinagar. The idea was conceptualized by Jammu and Kashmir Tourism in collaboration with Smart City Srinagar and Mission Youth of Jammu and Kashmir in an effort to give fillip to the tourism sector in Kashmir. The open theatre was inaugurated recently by Chief Secretary Arun Kumar Mehta with a screening of a famous Hindi movie, Kashmir Ki Kali, which was watched and enjoyed by the tourists in their shikaras. The idea of opening the theatre on Dal Lake in Srinagar would undoubtedly go a long way in promoting tourism of Kashmir. This is Sunil Kohl for AR News from Srinagar.
In the ICC Men's T20 Cricket World Cup, India will clash against Afghanistan in Abu Dhabi at 7:30 p.m. today, while New Zealand will take on Scotland at 3:30 p.m. in Dubai. Earlier, Pakistan beat Namibia by 45 runs at Zayed Cricket Stadium last night to become the first team to reach the semi-finals. Opting to bat first, Pakistan posted a total of 189 runs for the loss of 2 wickets with the help of Mohammad Rizwan's not out 79 and Babar Azam's 70 runs. In reply, Namibia could only score 144 for 5 wickets. And that is the end of this news bulletin.